Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another edition of the Underhive Wars. This is our series of Necromunda Dominion campaign battle reports, and this is battle report number 10, and it's fought between my friends Dark Lord Mac and Scream of the Emo. And in case that little introduction music from Return of the Mac by Mark Morrison didn't give that away, Dark Lord Mac is participating in this one. He's bringing Section 8, which is a Venators gang, and my friend Scream of the Emo is bringing the Red Faction, a Genestealer Cult gang. So this one's going to be kind of interesting. This is a standoff scenario that is fought between the two gangs. We're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what the gangs are bringing, go and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll. Alright, so let's go and talk about the scenario real quick. The scenario is a standoff scenario. It's a good old-fashioned gang fight. Both gangs can bring 10 members from their rosters in order to fight in this scenario. The objective is to put as many enemy fighters out of action as possible, and also earn points at the same time. You earn 3 points for taking out leaders, 2 points for champions, and 1 point for juvies, gangers, and hanger-ons. Whoever scores the most points by the end of the scenario wins. The winner earns D6 times 10 credits, while the loser earns D3 times 5 credits, and in the case where it's a tie, they both win D6 times 5 credits. For the reputation, for reputation experience, you get 1 point of experience for each fighter who fights in the scenario, as well as 1 experience point for the winning gang leader. And for the reputation, winner gets 2 points reputation, while also both gangs get plus reputation for fighting against each other for the very first time. If any gang bottles out, however, they lose that 1 point reputation. And since both Section 8 and the Red Faction are fighting each other for the very first time, both gangs will earn 1 point of reputation. Alright, so here's the battle plan on this one. As you can see, my friends are playing on a 4x4 surface area with lots of walkways and catwalks and all kinds of urban goodness. I'm not really sure what the battle plan is for either of my friends because I'm not playing the scenario, I'm just the one taking the photographs. What I can tell you though is that my friend Scream of the Emo is deployed on the near side of the table, while my friend Dark Lord Mac is deployed on the far side of the table. So with the battle plan over with, let's go and talk about the deployment real quick. Alright, so starting over here on the left hand side for Scream of the Emo, that's where a majority of his gang is located at. His leader, Benjamin Marsh, is standing there with his cult icon, of course. He's also equipped with 3 arms. He's also got 3 auto pistols. No, he's got 3 stub guns with dum-dum bullets, as well as an auto rifle. Right there, he also has Armitage, which is a neophyte who has a 3rd arm carrying a mining laser. He's also got Arkham, Innsmouth, as well as Pikmin, and those guys are armed, of course, with close combat weapons as well as auto pistols. And that pretty much makes up his deployment here on the left hand side. On the right hand side, he's got an Alklit hybrid named Simon Black. That guy has berserker skill. He's also got a 3rd arm as well as with fighting knife and auto pistol. And right behind them is old Zadok Allen, who's got a aberrant armed with a power hammer, and that makes up the right hand deployment for Scream of the Emo. And finally, all the way across the table in Dark Lord Mac's deployment area, that is, what's his name? Benjamin Marsh, I believe is what his name is. He's a Alkalite hybrid. He's got a fighting knife as well as a 3rd arm and an auto pistol. He has the infiltrate special rule, so he is 6 inches away from the rest of my friend Dark Lord Mac's troops. So they're on the top of the metro terminal, and he's on the other side of that radar dish. And that pretty much makes up Scream of the Emo's deployment on this one. Alright, up next we have deployment for Section 8 for the Venators on the top of the metro terminal, right next to Benjamin Marsh. My friend Dark Lord Mac has deployed Red Harvest, his game champion. He's got a long rifle as well as the fast shot special rule, and right behind them that is Noose Taggart, that is a hunter who is armed with a shotgun. And that makes up Dark Lord Mac's deployment on the left hand side. And finally, the base of the metro terminal is the rest of Dark Lord Mac's gang. In the back is the Saracen, that's his gang leader, armed with a last pistol with a hotshot power pack, as well as a sword. There's the Kurgan on the left-hand side, which is a hunter who's armed with twin servo claws. Up in the front, that is Val the Impaler, who's armed with a harpoon gun as well as a plasma gun, and on the right hand side that is the Buzzkill, that is another gang hunter who's armed with a bolt pistol as well as a rock saw. Now the second champion, Redcap Killer, he's out of action right now because he suffered a grievous injury in his last battle report, so he is in recovery. And that pretty much makes a deployment for Dark Lord Mac. So with both gangs deployed, my two friends roll off for initiative to see who goes first. So we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and my friend Scream the Emo managed to win the initiative on this one. So the first thing he does, he declares a charge with Benjamin Marsh, who runs across that radar dish directly into Noose Taggart, engaging that hunter into close combat. Needless to say, with using backstabbing from a fighting knife as well as having a third arm and an auto pistol, Noose Taggart is totally outclassed by Benjamin Marsh, who just puts that guy directly out of action. So because of that, Noose Taggart will need to roll up on the serious injury table at the end of the scenario to see exactly what happens to that character. At the same time, he also follows through 2 inches and goes directly to the back of Red Harvest. So because of that, Red Harvest and Benjamin Marsh will be fighting it out here pretty soon in this turn. So trying to press the advantage and trying to stay aggressive, Dark Lord Mac then activates the Saracen, who uses Commanding Presence ability to activate the Kurgan as well as Buzzkill and Val the Impaler, and all 4 Venators basically do a double movement forward from around the wall of the MCI Chemical Works towards the center of the battlefield, towards the west, towards the Alexander's department store, which is located in the middle of the battlefield. Buzzkill is taking point, quickly followed by Val the Impaler. The Kurgan is a little slow because he only has 3 inches for movement, so he only moves 6 inches, but that guy is also kitted out for close combat with high toughness as well as high strength. And that makes it the action phase for Dark Lord Mac's center. Meanwhile, my friend Scream the Emo then activates Obed Marsh, who then also activates all the rest of the members of the gang. They spend the entire turn doing a double movement running along the left-hand side of the office building that they're using as cover between the catwalks in the center of the battlefield. I'm sorry, the left-hand side of the battlefield, making their way towards the center. Right across the street from where they're located at in the next block, that's where the Alexander's department store is located at, and it looks like Scream the Emo is maneuvering his forces so that way he can intercept the Venators as they cross the battlefield. And that makes up the action phase on this part. And finally, Dark Lord Mac then activates Red Harvest, who then fights against Benjamin Marsh. Unfortunately for Dark Lord Mac, if I remember correctly, Red Harvest has a 5-up weapon skill, so he's not really good for close combat. He's really great for sniping at targets at long range, but close combat is not his thing. Needless to say, Obed Marsh puts the curb stomp on that character, puts him out of action. So because of that, Red Harvest will need to roll up on the serious injury table at the end of the scenario to see what happens to him. And that nets 3 experience points for Obed Marsh, 1 for taking out a hunter, a second one for taking out a gang champion. So things are not looking very good for the Venators. And finally, Scream the Emo then activates Simon Black as well as Zadok Allen, and they both do a double movement across the battlefield towards that barricade, heading towards the Alexander's department store in order to intercept the Venators. So with that being said, that ends the action phase, and we go directly to the end phase. And because Dark Lord Mac has lost 2 members out of action, he does have to take a bottle test. And unfortunately for Dark Lord Mac, he does fail that bottle test. So because of that, he loses his 1-point reputation for fighting against the Genestealer Cult for the very first time. So because of that, the next turn, at the beginning of his action phase, he'll need to roll off cool tests for the rest of his gang members to see if they stand their ground or if they end up running away. So with the end phase over with, we go directly to the top of the battlefield so that way you can see what's going on. So here's an overhead shot of the battlefield at the end of turn number 1. As you can see, Scream of the Emo is pressing his advantage on the left-hand side as well as in the center, heading towards the Alexander's department store, which is located in the middle of the battlefield. On the far right-hand corner, you have my friend Dark Lord Mac and his forces trying to cross that field in order to engage the Genestealer Cults. And you can see the Metro Terminal in the very back there in the right corner, and on the top of that is where Benjamin Marsh is located at. So because end of turn number 1 is over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and both Scream of the Emo and Dark Lord Mac roll off to see who will go first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2 for Section 8. Dark Lord Mac manages to take the initiative on this one. So the first thing he does, he takes cool checks for all the members of his gang that are still left on the table, and every single one of them passed. He then activates the Saracen, who then in turn, using his Commanding Presence ability, activates the Kurgan, Val the Impaler, as well as Buzzkill. He moves up the Saracen, as well as Val the Impaler and Buzzkill up their normal movement allowances right in front of the Alexander's department store next to those hedgehogs. So that way you can start taking aim with some range attacks against Zadok Allen as well as Simon Black, which is right behind the barricade in the bottom portion of the screen. At the same time, he also sends the Kurgan directly into the center of the Alexander's department store and has him spend a double movement to move as quickly as he can through that building so that way he can intercept the Genestealer Cults coming his way from his left-hand flank. So after moving his gangers, he decides to open up with his Venators against Simon Black as well as to Zadok Allen. Now he does open up first with Val the Impaler, who uses his Harpoon Gun. Now the Harpoon Gun has Impale as well as Drag rules, so it causes a wound onto Zadok Allen, and it goes through him, manages to hit Simon Black, and also gives him a flesh wound. Using the drag special rules because the character is still alive and the Harpoon Gun is still stronger than Simon Black's strength characteristics, he gets dragged forward D3 inches right over that wall, right over the other side of that rubble pile, bringing him closer to be shot at. Now that does bring him closer to be shot at for the rest of the gang members from the Section 8, so things are not looking very good for Simon Black. Dark Lord Mac, then he has Buzzkill open up with his plasma gun. Unfortunately for him though, he misses his shot, so his plasma pistol goes wide and doesn't manage to hit anything. However, the Saracen does manage to hit Simon Black with his hotshot laser pistol. Luckily for Scream with the Emo though, he only got a flesh wound onto his Acolyte, so because of that, the Acolyte is now currently carrying 2 flesh wounds. Now granted, that does make him easier to wound, and if he loses one more flesh wound, he just goes out of action, but that's still a gang member that can still shoot, who can still fight, so, you know, the worst things could happen. So in reaction to that, Scream of the Emo then activates Zadok Allen, who then lands a successful charge against Buzzkill. So because of that, Buzzkill and Zadok Allen do go into close combat. And the Aberrant, of course, has no problem whatsoever putting the hurt on that guy using his power hammer. So because of that, Buzzkill does go out of action, and he will need to roll up on the serious injury table at the end of the battle report. And because he has a 2-inch follow-through, he then falls through to the next nearest target, which is Val the Impaler. So because of that, Val the Impaler will be in close combat with that Aberrant. At the same time, my friend Scream of the Emo then activates Simon Black, who moves up his normal movement allowance, and he takes aim with his auto pistol and opens up on the Saracen. Simon Black was able to cause a wound on the Saracen, but because the Saracen is the leader, he has 1 additional wound left, so because of that, not much really happens over there on the right-hand flank. Meanwhile, across the other side of the battlefield, Scream of the Emo then activates Obed Marsh, who uses command presence to activate all the remaining members of the gang. And as you can see here, all 4 of them make a normal movement forward just using their normal movement allowance, and all 5 members open up with their firearms directly into the Kurgan, who's in the center of the Alexander's department store. Most of the gang's shot actually go wide. I believe only 2 of them actually hit. I believe Obed Marsh managed to hit him once, causing a flesh wound, but Armitage, who is the neophyte who's carrying the mining laser, managed to hit him the best and actually put the final wound on him, putting him out of action. So because of that, the Kurgan will need to roll up on the serious injury table to see what exactly happens to him at the end of the scenario. And at the same time, Armitage earns himself an additional experience point for taking out a member of the rival gang. And finally, my friend Scream of the Emo then activates Benjamin Marsh, who does a double movement to go down the next level of the metro terminal, making his way down to the ground level so that way he can help out the members of his gang. So with the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase. And here's an overhead shot of the entire battlefield so that way you get an idea what's going on. As you can see, there's combat taking place on the right-hand side of the Alexander's department store between Zadok Allen and Benjamin Marsh versus the Saracen, as well as Val the Impaler. And you can see that on the left-hand side, the rest of the red faction moving across the battlefield as quick as they can in order to help out their fellow members against Section 8. So with turn number 2 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and both of my friends roll off for initiative to see who goes first. And at the top of turn number 3, the Section 8 manages to get the initiative on this one, so Dark Lord Mac goes first. He activates his gang leader, the Saracen, and then also activates Val the Impaler. He charges the Saracen indirectly into Simon Black and starts engaging him into close combat. Combat between Val the Impaler as well as Zadok Allen does not go well. Zadok Allen just kind of slams his power hammer right directly onto Val the Impaler's head, putting him out of action. So because of that, Val the Impaler will need to roll up on the serious injury table at the end of the scenario to see what happens to him. And because the Saracen managed to charge directly into Simon Black, he gets attacked first. He actually manages to put him out of action with his sword, so because of that, Simon Black will need to roll up on the serious injury table to see what happens to him at the end of the scenario. And then of course, Dark Lord Mac has to quickly do a 2-inch follow through, so that way he can get further away from the aberrant Zadok Allen. So, seeking revenge against what happened to their fellow gang member, Scream of the Emo then activates Obed Marsh, and then also activates the rest of his gang. They all move up their normal movement allowance to that barricade, and they all start taking aim with their pistols directly at the Saracen, and they open up with a vengeance. And after the gunshots stop and the gun smoke clears, it ends up that the Saracen goes out of action. The final killing blow being launched by Arkham, which is the one of the gangers. I believe he's armed with the auto pistol and the power maul. He actually managed to put him out of action, netting himself 2 experience points, one for taking someone out of action, and additional experience points for taking out a gang leader. And with that being said, all the section 8 members are dead or out of action, which takes us directly to the end of the scenario. So as you can see here, the game ends with Red Faction winning this one. So with that being said, we're going to go directly to the post game because this battle report is now officially over. So first of all, we start with Section 8, the Venator Gang. In the injuries, every single member of the gang that fought in this one got injured. So because of that, here's the roster. News Taggart suffered a spinal injury, so because of that, that character goes into recovery and loses 1 point from their strength. Red Harvest, however, got a lessons learned result, so because of that, he makes a full recovery, and he goes into recovery, but he gets 3 additional experience points as well. Buzzkill, on the other hand, suffered an eye injury, so because of that, he loses 1 point to his ballistic skill. Meanwhile, the Kurgan, Val the Impaler, as well as the Saracen, they all roll out cold results, so they'll be able to participate in the next scenario. For the advancements, my friend Dark Lord Matt then spends his experience points for Red Harvest, leveling him up to level 2 and having him learn the Clamber skill, so that way he can move quickly up and down ladders. From his territory, he earns 40 credits from his settlement, as well as 30 credits from his reputation, and he also managed to get 5 credits from the scenario. He gets himself 75 credits total, so during the merchant phase, he hires a new hunter named Mayday, equipping her with a last gun as well as mesh armor. For his reputation, Dark Lord Matt earns 1 point of reputation from his settlement, as well as 1 reputation point from fighting against the Red Faction for the first time, but because he balled out, he loses that additional point of reputation, netting a grand total of 3 reputation for his gang. His current record now is at 0 wins as well as 2 losses, and his new gang rating is at 1,205 points. Now let's talk about the Red Faction. For Scream of the Emo, the only injury he had was Simon Black, his Acolyte hybrid. He suffers a grievous injury, so he will not be able to participate in his next battle report. For his advancements, however, he did spend his experience points for Obed Marsh as well as Benjamin Marsh. Both of those characters are learning skills. Obed Marsh learned the gunfighter skill, making him even deadlier at shooting with pistols, and Benjamin Marsh learned the backstab skill, making him even deadlier at attacking people from behind. From his territory, he captured a rogue dock shop for his new territory, so because they recruited a new hanger-on, a rogue dock named Old Waitley. He also earned 10 credits from his settlement as well as 30 credits from his mining works. Now, combined with his credits from his territory and the 20 credits he got from the scenario, he ended up with 60 credits total, and he purchased 4 sets of respirators, 1 for Obed Marsh, 1 for Benjamin Marsh, 1 for Simon Black, as well as Armitage. His current reputation, he earned 2 points of reputation from the scenario, as well as 1 point for fighting against Section 8 for the very first time. He also earns a reputation point from his settlement and 2 from his mining works because Genestealer Cults are counted as Orlocks for the enhanced boons for territory, so because he earns that, netting him a grand total of 13 reputation points. So at this point, the Genestealer Cults and Scream of the Emo are the current leaders right now in the terms of reputation. His new record now is at 2 wins as well as 0 losses, and his new gang rating now is at 1,325 points. So that's going to do it for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Instagram, blogger.com, as well as Facebook for all the latest greatest news about our hobby for our channel. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.